On board an aircraft carrier, the USS Constellation, in mid-January 1972, we received word that we were no longer restricted to just bombing targets. We were able to go out, hunt, seek, and destroy MiGs for the first time since 1967, when President Johnson terminated the bombing in North Vietnam. On 19 January, while operating over Quang Lang Airfield, I was lucky enough to engage two MiG-21s after dodging some 36 SAMs. I was able to brake and about a 6G turn, point my nose toward the ground when I looked up and saw two MiG-21s. I closed the low MiG, fired a missile at about 1 mile. The MiG turned in about an 8G turn. His wingman flat ran and left him. The missile went off behind the MiG, and as he reversed, I fired the second missile. The second missile impacted the MiG, and he exploded as he rolled head over heels right through a VC village. On 8 May 1972, I was on a MiG cap. We were to position RF-4s between a military target and the enemy MiG bases in Yen Bai. We got a vector toward Yen Bai after unknown contacts. The strike force was striking a target behind us, and we got orders to return. Just about that time, our GCI controllers came up on the radio and said, "Showtime, you have MiGs at 6 o'clock. I pulled the airplane into vertical, rolled upside down, and saw a MiG-17 at Brian's tail. I ordered him to make the defensive maneuver while trying to pull in to shoot the MiG off of his tail. During this time, two MiG-17s passed 180 out from us and turned down at my 6 o'clock. I fired the first missile in which the MiG turned into, and then for some reason, which was a mistake on his part, he reversed his turn right in front of me. Perhaps he thought his MiGs were going to nail me. We fired the second missile. This MiG blew up. In the meantime, we had tracers coming from the MiGs behind us. Brian had pitched up at 2 o'clock. We had put a 12G turn on our airplane to avoid the MiG's tracers. He closed and rendezvoused. I had to unload the airplane, dive into the clouds, just to lose him. We accelerated to 600 knots, pulled up in the vertical, and the MiGs followed us. Brian called tally-ho on the MiG-17s, rolled in after them, and they went back into the clouds. We chased but couldn't find them. 5 minutes later, a pair of Air Force F-4s shot down two MiG-17s. I'd like to think it was the same MiGs that were tracking me. 10 May 1972, I pulled off a target just south of Hanoi over Hai Duong Railroad Yard. As I pitched off target, I was looking to the right-hand side, looking at the target. My wingman, Brian Grant, called, "Duke, MiG 7 o'clock. As I reversed, there were tracers coming by the canopy. I broke into the MiG. He overshot. I reversed, looking and watching his wingman pull up in the vertical behind me. I reversed and shot, and this is why I say you fight like you train, because the only thing I had to do when that MiG overshot is pull the trigger. I couldn't have gone back inside, set 35 mils in the gun sight, set arm and set sidewinder, as a lot of people hadn't done before. We accelerated out, got away from the MiG that was chasing us, pitched back into the vertical, looked back and saw 12 MiG-17s in a defensive wheel. That's one MiG behind the other, and in that wheel we had Phantoms chasing those MiGs. I rolled down into the MiGs, trying to track one that was coming around the corner like this that hopefully didn't even see me. About that time, an F-4 passed in front of us who turned out to be my executive officer. I pitched up in the vertical like this, straight over the fight, only to see a MiG-17 behind my XO at a 7 o'clock, a MiG-21 a little bit farther behind, and what he didn't see was a MiG-17 flying on his wing. As I came down out of the perch position, trying to shoot the closest MiG off of his tail and trying to get the XO to reverse to set the MiG up, we had, out of that turn, 4 MiG-17s, 4 MiG-19s, 2 MiG-19s, and 4 MiG-21s chasing us. For this, I was nominated for the Congressional Medal of Honor. I didn't think I was going to survive that fight, but I made a radio transmission to the XO saying, "I don't think I'm going to survive, but I'll at least take the MiG off of your tail." I was lucky enough to shoot the MiG that was chasing him. The MiG blew up. The 421s came down on him. I called the XO to reverse. He did. The MiGs turned and then broke out and ran back toward Hanoi. Now we're headed out. We already have 2 MiG kills, and I look and see a single MiG-17 coming head on. I passed the MiG head on, went into the vertical, and most MiGs ran. The pilot capability was not very good, so I expected him to head for Hanoi. Coming back into the pure vertical, I put my airplane going about 500 knots straight up, looked back expecting to see this MiG running. But instead, as I looked back over the canopy, I saw a little set of Gomer goggles, little Gomer scarf, and Colonel Toon going vertical with me, going through about 15,000 feet. I went over the top, he shot, I broke down, made a mistake, and put him right where I didn't want him at my 6 o'clock. Unloaded the airplane, put about 500 knots on it, broke into him, forced him to overshoot, and at this point I thought that I had him by the tail feathers. Reversed, went upside down, he looked, broke into me, forced me to overshoot, and this is what we call a rolling scissors. Disengaged from that maneuver. A guy named Dave Frost had taught me how to disengage when he's got an advantage, to brake as he turns to keep on pulling, and then unload the airplane and accelerate out. I did this twice. The whole fight took about 4 minutes. On the third pass, we're coming canopy to canopy. For some reason, he started pulling up early, a nice easy pull. So right here, I chopped the throttles, put out my speed brakes, dropped the flaps, and the MiG flew right in front of me. Now I'm standing here at 120 knots with an airplane that can outturn me 2-to-1. I was thinking about just getting out of the engagement because I was so close I couldn't shoot him with a missile. But instead, Colonel Toon departed his airplane, went down, and I thought, well, I'm still going to run, but he still headed away. I reversed, fired a missile, the missile came off, impacted him, and I started following him down at that point. During the engagement, I saw the stars, the 13 stars of Colonel Toon on his aircraft, but was little aware that it was actually Colonel Toon in the airplane. Later, it was proven that, in fact, Colonel Toon was a pilot of that MiG-17 on 10 May 1972 that went down in flames. After the Vietnam War, the Navy elected to retain the Navy Fighter Weapons School, or Top Gun. Its results were very effective, giving us a 12-to-1 kill ratio in Vietnam. After the war, I came back as a Top Gun instructor, and then in later years, I then went on to command the F-126, the Navy Aggressor Squadron. The MiG-29 and the MiG-31, the Navy Fighter Weapons School and Aggressor Squadron uses the new F-16N, which has very similar characteristics.
We got F4 is north of Felicia Peak. We got the Bandits 150 for 40 miles. They may try to hit over that way. You hit it south now.
That's fine. We're steady about 170.
Okay, the lead just went in a right-hand turn to south. Come hard left 180. Check on the nose a mile.
You got a bogey. 6 o'clock for 6,000 feet.
Right.
Keep the turn in. We're coming around hard on him.
Okay.
It's better to make your mistakes in training against a Top Gun instructor than it is a real MiG, because you're not competing for 6 gold medals. Whether you win or lose determines whether you live or die. And it's important in our training program to create the most realistic environment that we possibly can.
Knock it out! Knock it out!
Inherently dangerous in air combat training. A good friend of mine, Bobby Hughes, while on a training mission in an A4, gave lead pursuit to an F-14.
Viper's got a cap. We've had a mid-air. I think we've had a mid-air. Roger, Red 1 copies. I'll hold high. Viper's got a cap. Don't anybody get below these things right now in case there's a chute coming down.
The F-14 didn't see him. They impacted, and Bobby Hughes was killed. The F-14 crew was forced to eject. What we strive on a daily basis to do is to ensure that those kinds of things don't happen.
Cruise at 21. Viper cruise at 24. Anybody see a chute? No chute.
We started out, you were in a position where you'd committed nose high on me, and I was pretty slow, so I
The
extended.
purpose of Top Gun is to train Navy fighter pilots that are the best in their squadron. They then return to that squadron and train the pilots and backseaters that didn't have the opportunity to go through Top Gun to become the finest aviators in the world. In the movie Top Gun, most of the flying scenes were conducted in strictly the horizontal, an airplane chasing each other. A real fight takes place three-dimensionally, not only in the horizontal, but vertically as well. If you can get your opponent to overshoot in the vertical and roll and get behind him, or he can even be above you and you can break into him and force the overshoot, that's the method we use to train. While all of this is going on, you may have one airplane that passes you. You have to mentally plot this airplane, knowing if he's a MiG-17, 21, or whatever, because you know how fast he turns, and you learn this in training. Now what I'm thinking is, can he get back around to shoot me before I can get from my position to get over and shoot somebody ahead of me? And what I'll do a lot of times is press that target